Welcome to Elementary Python for CBSE. Today we are going to discuss about operating system, which is there in the syllabus of CBSE Class 11 Computer Science Unit 1. We will discuss the basic concepts of operating system, process management, memory management, language processor, parallel processing, and cloud computing. What is an operating system? An operating system is a system software which operates a computer. That means it controls and coordinates the function or operation of a computer system. As a resource manager, operating system is responsible for managing all the resources of a computer, like the memory, the processor, the devices, the files, etc. It acts as an interface between the user and the system. Whatever command we issue, it is interpreted by the operating system, and this in turn makes the hardware work accordingly. It also provides a platform for running different types of application. Whatever application we are using, whether it's a painting software or a editor or a word processor, or whatever it may be, that needs any operating system, any platform to be used. So all the application software, they use the operating system as a platform. It is also responsible for network management. We may connect computers in a network for sharing of information as well as resources and for communication, but that increases the work of the operating system of managing the network. That means to respond to the services made by the different computers connected in the network. So for that also we are having special type of operating system like network operating system. Operating system is also responsible for maintaining security, because nowadays we are having multitasking, so many jobs or processes executing simultaneously, and it is essential to maintain the security between them so that the data of one is protected from the other. There are many other tasks of the operating system. It also maintains the system clock. As a resource manager, the operating system is responsible for managing the processor, the memory, the device, the file, etc. With the development of software, the operating system has also evolved over time. The factors that affect the efficiency of any operating system are throughput. Throughput means it is the amount of work that can be completed in a given time period. That means suppose we say that in an hour 10 jobs can be completed, but in the same 1 hour 20 jobs may be completed. Using some another strategy, then we say that the throughput in the second case is better. For improving the efficiency of the operating system, throughput has to be maximized. The next one is turnaround time. It is the time gap between submission of a job and its completion. That means the time taken by any job to complete a task, and this is equal to the execution time plus the wait time. So what is execution time? Execution time is the time duration for which a job or a process is using the processor, and wait time is the time duration for which a job which is in need of the CPU, but it has to wait for others to provide the CPU or to leave the CPU so that it can use the processor for processing. And there is one more, that is response time, which is the time that it takes to provide the first response. For improving the efficiency of the operating system, the turnaround time, the response time as well as wait time, they have to be minimized. So what is a process? A process is a program in execution. We know a program is a set of instructions written in any programming language. Programs are written to automate the task, and when we execute any program, when any task is actually going on, we say that a process has started. By itself, a program does not utilize any resources, but when it starts executing, when a process starts running or a process starts execution, then we say that the process uses system's resources like the memory, processor, etc. To use the resources efficiently to improve the system performance, we generally have multi-programming, multitasking or time sharing system, in which a number of processes, they may be executed simultaneously. But when we are allowing multiple jobs to be processed simultaneously, then in that case it is essential to have a proper mix of CPU and IO bound jobs. So CPU and IO bound jobs means the jobs which require more processing time, they are called CPU bound job, and the jobs which require some input output but a little amount of processing, they are called IO bound jobs. So if you have a proper mix of both CPU and IO bound jobs, then the resources like the devices, the memory and the processor, they will be used efficiently. Otherwise it may so happen that one is heavily used whereas the other is remaining idle. When we are having multi-programming or time sharing or multitasking system and many processes are there which are executed simultaneously, it is essential to manage them for efficient use of the resources. So let us start with process management. Process management, it is one of the major function of the operating system. A process passes through different states during its execution. We will see the process state diagram to understand the different states. When many processes are there, the operating system uses different queues like job queue, ready queue for managing them. The information regarding the different processes, they are maintained in a data structure known as the process control block. The process scheduler is the part of the operating system which is responsible for scheduling the processes, that means deciding the order and the strategy in which the processes will be executed. And we will see how a program is executed by following an instruction cycle, that means instruction by instruction, following a fetch, decode and execute cycle. An active process, the process which is there in the memory, that is already loaded into the memory, it passes through different states. When a process is created, it is said to be in the new state. As soon as it is ready for processing, it is said to be in a ready state. It waits for the processor time in the ready state. When it gets the CPU time, that means the scheduler schedules the process for execution, it is said to be in running state. At this point of time, it is actually using the CPU or the processor. If any IO request has been made, that means the process or the job requires some input or output. From the running state, it may go to the waiting state, and on completion of the input output, it may again go to the ready state. If a process is running and some interrupt occurs, for example, if a high priority job has to be processed or executed, then the current process may be interrupted. So in that case, again the process has to wait in the ready state, and when the job is complete, it is terminated, it is said to be in the end state. Operating system maintains a data structure called the process control block in the main memory to keep track of the status of the different processes. The various information that is maintained in a process control block is the process ID, which is a unique ID given to the processes by the operating system when they are initiated and loaded into the memory. The process state, the current state of the process, whether it is ready or it is running or it is wait state, etc. The process priority, in some cases there may be some higher priority processes which may need the resources quickly in an urgent basis. So in that case, process priority may be assigned, and this part keeps the information regarding privileges status given to the processes. Pointer may be maintained to keep track of the parent process, the sub-processes of a current process if there are any. The program counter, it keeps the information regarding the address of the next instruction. There may be various CPU registers that the process need for its execution. Then there may be accounting information regarding how much memory is used, how much CPU time has already been used, how much CPU time is required, etc. A part of the operating system called the process scheduler, it schedules the processes, that means determines the order in which the processes will be executed once they are ready. It is responsible for scheduling of the processes. Scheduling may be mainly of two types. non-preemptive scheduling and preemptive scheduling. Non-preemptive scheduling means once a process starts execution, it will be terminated only when it completes the task, and then only the next process can be scheduled. So commonly used non-preemptive scheduling are first comes first served and shortest job first. In contrast, preemptive scheduling, it may preempt or forcefully terminate the current process, or the current process may be interrupted to allow execution of any other higher priority process. Common preemptive scheduling techniques are round robin scheduling and priority based scheduling. So we'll discuss some of the scheduling techniques. In non-preemptive scheduling, a process cannot preempt or interrupt another process. So the next process in the queue can get the processor time when current process terminates. In first come first served scheduling, jobs are processed in the order in which they enter the ready queue. Though this is simple, but the average wait time will be high. In shortest job first, the process that has the smallest CPU burst is scheduled to be processed when current process terminates. If there are many processes, then though the current process will not be forcefully terminated, but after the current process completes its job, the next job that will get the CPU time, that is decided based on the amount of CPU requirement. That means how much time it requires, and the shortest among them will be selected. So for this, the processes, they had to provide prior information regarding the requirement of CPU, that is CPU burst of each process has to be kept. The average waiting time, however, in case of shortage of first scheduling is less as compared to first come first serve. Let us now discuss about one of the most popular preemptive scheduling technique. Preemptive means a process may get interrupted by some another process, that is current process may be interrupted to provide CPU to some another process. In case of round robin scheduling, each process is allocated a fixed amount of time, CPU time, called the time slice or quantum, within which the process has to finish the job, or if it is not completed, then it has to be terminated and it has to wait for the next turn, and the process which is there in the queue will be selected for execution, and all the processes in turn, they will get the equal time, that is equal to the time slice or the quantum. If a process can complete its execution within the given time slice, then it is terminated, otherwise it has to wait for the next turn and other processes to get the CPU time. Round robin scheduling, it allows a number of small processes to share the CPU time, but each of them have the illusion that they are alone using the CPU, and hence CPU is used efficiently. CPU's ideal time is reduced. Let us now see how an instruction is executed. Each instruction follows an instruction cycle or the fetch, decode, execute cycle. Whenever some process has to be executed, it is executed instruction by instruction. That means it is first converted into the machine language, and then each instruction is executed one after another. When a program is loaded into the memory, the control unit fetches the first instruction. The instruction is then decoded by the control unit and decided whether it is a read operation or a write operation or an arithmetic or logical operation, and depending upon that, the arithmetic and logic unit executes the instruction or carries out the desired operation and returns the result. The result is then stored in the main memory. This way, the next instruction is then fetched, decoded and executed, and the process continues till all the instructions are executed. Let us now see some memory management technique. A part of the operating system is also responsible for managing the memory when multiple jobs are there. To use the memory efficiently, to keep track of the amount of memory, to allocate and free the memory, to ensure safety of the memory management part of the operating system is responsible. It uses different memory management techniques for managing the memory efficiently, and they are single memory allocation and partition memory allocation, contiguous and non-contiguous memory allocation, paging and segmentation. The simplest memory management technique is single memory allocation, in which entire memory space is allocated to a single job. So other jobs have to wait for current one to complete, then only the current job is unloaded and the next job is loaded. However, with this the memory may not be used efficiently. So to allocate memory to more than one job, partition memory allocation is used, which divides the memory into different contiguous blocks known as partitions, and different programs or jobs may be allocated one partition each depending upon their requirement. Contiguous and non-contiguous memory allocation. With contiguous memory allocation, a program is allocated memory in adjacent locations or one contiguous block. If such a block of enough space is not available, then memory cannot be allocated and the job has to wait, even if total memory which is available in different locations is more than the requirement. So this memory management technique suffers from what is known as external fragmentation. To avoid this problem, non-contiguous memory allocation technique may be used, in which a program may be allocated a space in separate memory location which need not be adjacent. This avoids the external fragmentation, however, it may suffer from internal fragmentation. Paging and segmentation. So in paging, a program or job is divided into fixed size blocks known as pages. Each page is then mapped into the main memory of fixed size called a frame. That means pages are mapped to equal size framed. This is done by using a page map table. With paging, logically related parts of a program may not be together, and hence the particular page in request may have to be brought into the main memory over and over again. This may slow down the process. However, in segmentation, a program or job is divided into logical segments which have the related parts together. So this avoids the problem with paging. However, the segments, they may be of different size, and depending upon their requirement, memory is allocated of enough space to each segment, and the segments are mapped to the main memory using a segment mapping table. So with segmentation, logically related parts, they belong to one another, and hence a particular segment need not be requested over and over again as in case of paging. The benefit of both may be combined together. That means segmentation may be combined with paging to have the benefit of both. Input-output management. Just like memory and processor management, a part of the operating system is responsible for input-output management, which sends input-output request received by a process to the particular device, and then sends the response received from the device to the process. When there are multiple requests, the IO manager is responsible for managing the request using different device queues. The IO manager uses different strategies for managing the input-output devices or managing the input-output request of process. When a process gets busy in input-output, then the CPU may be free and they may be processed using the CPU. Language processor. They are responsible for translating the source code into object code. Source code means the code which is written in any high level language or in any programming language to object code, that means into the machine code. Language processors are of three types: compilers, interpreters and assembler. The assembler is solely responsible for translating assembly language program into machine language. Our compiler and interpreter, they translate the high level language into machine language. Compilers, they translate the entire program at a time and list all the errors with line numbers. In this case, since all the errors are listed together, it is very difficult to locate the position of the errors, and once compiled, the compiler is no longer required in memory. The object code is generated immediately. Programming languages like C, C++, they use the compiler. Interpreter is a translator which translates the program line by line. It halts when any error is found, and only when the error is rectified it advances to the next line. Even if it is easy to locate the error, this may be slower, and the interpreter has to be retained in the memory as it is always required. Also, we do not get the object code immediately. An example of interpreter is the Python programming language, which basically uses an interpreter. Parallel processing. Parallel processing means more than one processor used to solve any computational problem. We have seen in multi-programming or in time-sharing system, with one processor many jobs may be done which shares the CPU time, and hence they are called time-sharing system. But with parallel processing we actually use the concept of load sharing. That means instead of sharing the time of one processor, there may be many processors which are used simultaneously, and the problem is actually divided into logically different parts, discrete parts. Each may be capable of running independently using separate processor, and finally they are combined to produce the result. So generally computational intensive problems, they are divided into discrete parts called subprocessors using the concept of multi-threading, which can run simultaneously using many processors and independent of each other. Each part is processed using a separate processor. Basically, parallel processing is useful for solving very large and computational intensive complex problems which cannot be solved using a single processor, or which may take very long time to be processed using a single processor. Parallel processing helps in reducing the time and improving the throughput, and hence it also reduces the cost. Mainframes and supercomputers, they use the concept of parallel processing. That means there are many inbuilt processors which run or execute simultaneously. We'll briefly discuss about cloud computing. This is the storage and access of data over the internet. It also provides different kinds of services to the client. It provides different types of resources to the client. The client or the user does not have to have all the resources to execute any problem or do any task. Rather, it may use the resources or the data from the internet for doing its task. Broadly, cloud access may be divided into two categories. That means for using the services of cloud computing, someone needs to have access to any cloud. So cloud may be of two types, public cloud or private cloud. Private cloud, they are owned by enterprises or single organizations using their private network. The data and resources, they are kept or managed in a private network, and these are generally provided by government organizations or financial institutions, etc. In contrast, a public cloud, it is a common cloud service made available to many subscribers. The cloud resources like the hardware or the software or the infrastructure, they are owned and managed by third-party cloud service provider, and that is shared among all its subscribers. Generally, it provides services such as online storage, web-based mail, development testing of environment of various applications. Some examples of public cloud are Google Drive, iCloud, Amazon Cloud Drive, Microsoft's Azure, etc. The cloud services that may be provided are platform as a service, storage as a service, infrastructure as a service, etc. So that's all for today's session. Thank you.